Hey, what's going on YouTube? Chuckles again with a World of Warcraft video. So today I thought I would break down the first part of LFR, by the bosses, what they do, and how to do them. So this is Kargath. He's the first boss. Well, there's a mini boss Volgor in front of him, but he's really easy and there really isn't a strategy behind him. And then this guy, Kargath, Blade Fist. So he has a few main abilities that you want to watch out for. He does impale to the tanks, and that's when you tank swap at 2 stacks of impale. He rams his left hand, the one with the huge knife. He rams that through the tank and like lifts him off the ground. That's the animation you can see happening. And then that's when you tank swap at 2 stacks of impale. In LFR, a lot of the abilities are closed off, like these grates. I'll zoom in here. Those grates in normal and heroic, those open up and they have tigers underneath them, and then if you fall in, it's an instant death, like you just die. The little skulls on the ground, those pop up and those become flame pillars, so you have to watch out because he'll put flame pillars all over the ground. Well, I guess only 4 of them, but they have kind of like a large AoE, so you want to be mindful of that. You can see one of them open there on the left hand side of the screen. So basically the tanks him in the middle of the room, and what he's doing right there when he jumps to a random player, that's called Blade Dance, and he does that throughout the fight. There's no real way to avoid it. It's not an aggro dump or anything, he just does it. So you have to be mindful of that. The next ability that the main one you gotta watch out for is whatchamacallit, Berserker Rush. He randomly targets a member of the raid, and then he fixates. See, like he's doing it to that guy right there, Sarah or whatever. He fixates and runs, like walks towards them. If he touches you, you will die. So what you have to do is you have to walk him into one of those pillars while not standing. Well, I was just standing in one, but while not standing in a pillar yourself. So you have to kind of walk him around the outside of it until he walks into it, and then he says some kind of RP about you're going to need more than flames or something like that, and that's when he stops fixating them on that particular player. If you don't walk him into a pillar, he'll just keep following you. Like, you have to walk him into a pillar. So this ability right here, this is Chain Hurl. He knocks everybody away from him, and then in LFR it randomly picks 3 DPS, a healer, and then the tank that has the most stacks of impale. It picks them and throws them up into the crowd. In normal and so on and so forth, like, you have to be the closest people to him. So you have to designate, okay, this tank be the closest, this healer be the closest, these 3 DPS be the closest. And then you get shot up into these stands like I am here. Essentially, the tank's going to pull them all to one side, and you want to AoE nuke them down. The guys with the huge backpacks, those are bombers. Throughout normal and stuff like that, they throw bombs onto the ground, and it'll leave like green poisonous stuff all over the ground. So you have to, like, it's a very important part. Like, you have to do this. After a little while, a big guy with a club will walk through the stands and knock off any remaining guys. Like, any more DPS, they'll knock them back down to the ground. But usually, after you kill a bit, there he is, right there. You see him. But normally after you kill quite a few of them, it just knocks, you just jump down, because in LFR it's really not that big of a deal. So that's mainly it. And see, you can see the poison over there on the ground on the right hand side of the screen. You want to stay away from that, but they're throwing bombs down at us right now. So basically for LFR, it's kind of a joke, a tank and spank. The whole raid's pretty easy. But that's really all there is to Kargath. So to recap, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to stand kind of close to a flame pillar. That way, in case he picks you, you can walk him into the flames. That's the Berserker Rush right there. Again, pick Sarah again. Just must really like that person. So walk him into a flame pillar. Blade Dance is unavoidable. If he starts hitting you with Blade Dance randomly, it is what it is. Just take it. Chain Hurl knocks everybody back, picks them up, throws them into the stand. Your main job is to grab as many as you can, AoE them down, and then jump back down or get knocked back down and continue to DPS the boss. Don't stand in poisonous crap all over the ground, that green stuff right there. Avoid the flame pillars. In normal, you'll want to avoid those grates so you don't get one-shot KO'd by the tigers. Okay, next up we have the Butcher. So the Butcher is quite the DPS race. In LFR it's really not that bad, but in normal that's really your gear check. You have to do it in a certain amount of time, and everybody has to uphold their own DPS. So for this fight, the strategy is mainly on the tanks. It's mainly the tank's job to watch what's happening and what's going on. It's a very tank and spank-ish fight with mechanics involved. So his first one is called Heavy-Handed. It's a passive that Butcher has, and what it does is it causes all of his auto attacks to trigger a second attack on the next closest target within 5 yards of the main target. So what that essentially means is both tanks have to stand in front of him. Like, they both have to soak the damage. That right there, what he did is he just knocked us all back, and I'll go into that too. He also has a Cleave. His Cleave is his main ability. He uses it every 5 seconds. He targets the largest clump of players in melee range and strikes them like a normal cleave. And everybody who gets cleaved gets a debuff. I think it's called like gushing wounds or something like that. I stay away from him because I'm ranged. I mean, I should probably stack up, but it is what it is. Help soak the damage, but essentially what it is it's a bleed effect. Lasts, I think, 15 or 20 seconds. If it reaches 5 stacks, however, you die. So you have to watch that. Like, if you're getting hit with gushing wounds over and over, chances are you're gonna die. So you don't want to do that. Next is the Cleaver. He uses it to damage the tank. It applies a bleed effect on them. I think the bleed effect is called the Cleaver, actually. That's what you tank swap on. So you get your Cleaver, you tank swap. The next one gets the Tenderizer, and what the Tenderizer is it's the exact same thing, but it's a 40-second debuff. So what you're going to want to do is every time they take a Tenderizer, it's 50% more from the Tenderizer. So you have to swap off who's getting the Tenderizer. So you get a Cleaver on the tank, then you get a Tenderizer. Next, he does Bounding Cleave, which is an ability that the Butcher uses when he reaches 100 energy. That's the knockback. It knocks all of them away from him. And then at 30% health, he charges to the largest clumps of players and casts Cleave on them. So, then lastly, he has Meat Hook. It's an ability the Butcher uses to pull his tank to him. Essentially, I believe what it does is it makes it to where he can't be kited. That's all there really is to that. It's not a big deal. So that's basically it from a DPS standpoint. It's a tank and spank. Watch your stacks of gushing wounds and let the tanks do their thing. Okay, and the third and final boss in the first part of LFR is Brackenspore. And Brackenspore is a very easy but interesting fight all in itself. So basically what he is he's a large fungus type creature, and he spawns multiple ads throughout the thing, and you have to deal with mushrooms, but it's very easy. So Brackenspore himself literally only has 3 abilities. The first one is called the Rot, and it's a stacking like damage over time effect, a dot on the tank. That's the tank swap mechanic, is Rot. So depending on how many stacks you can handle, that's one of the mushrooms right there, that fungus that's eating me alive. However many stacks you can take, and then a tank swap. Usually I'm not 100% sure, I haven't tanked this fight yet, but I think it's like 3 or 4 stacks, something like that. Next he does Necrotic Breath. It's a frontal cone breath attack that deals like a high amount of damage, and it gives you a dot for like 5 seconds. So the main thing about that is it also reduces the effects of your healing by 99%. So while it's going on for 5 seconds, the tank is unhealable. So one tank wants to stand in front of him, get it, move, the other one takes it, so on and so forth. Lastly, he does Infesting Spores, which is what you just saw right there, which he channels it over 10 seconds, and then it basically does raid-wide damage, and it's really not that much, but then it gives all raid members a 3-second dot as well. If it reaches 10 stacks, like, it hurts pretty bad. But other than that, Brackenspore himself is very easy. It's the ads that you have to kind of control. So the mushrooms that pop up on the ground, the blue one, is Mind Fungus. It restores your mana. The green one is, I think it's called Spore Shooter, maybe? It's Spore something. I looked it up once, but it heals you, so you want to stand next to it. The big mushroom looking guy, the other one, the large, what's it called, a fungal flesh eater, that is a those regularly spawn throughout the fight, and they have 2 abilities all in themselves. The first ability is called Flesh Eater. It's a stacking debuff that adds damage over time, and it makes the Brackenspore's casting speed and his attack speed go up by 10%. So you have to kind of watch that. He does that sometimes. Next, his main ability that he does damage is called Decay. It's interruptible, so as long as you have somebody interrupting it, it's not a big problem, but it deals like pretty high raid-wide damage. It's his main ability. He tries to cast that like way more than Flesh Eater, so you have to watch that. But when Flesh Eater starts stacking up on the ad, that's when things can get crazy, because every time he does Flesh Eater, his haste essentially goes up by 10%, and then he'll cast Decay even more, and you won't be able to interrupt it, and then it can wipe you. In LFR, it's really not a problem. There's also 2 flamethrowers at the start of the fight. Like, you can pick those up, and what you do with the flamethrowers is essentially you'll use it to kill the creeping moss. Like, those are the other tiny little ads, and you can also use them on the mushrooms themselves to clear those out. You want DPS to pick up the flamethrowers, because you don't want your healers running around doing that when they could be healing, and you most definitely don't want the tanks to do it. So again, Brackenspore is a very easy fight. A little bit of movement, but not much. Mainly it's a tank and spank. Like, for being the final boss in this wing, it's really a joke. It's very, very easy. So again, move when you have to move. Get close to good mushrooms, the living mushrooms. What are they? Living mushroom and something else. I can't remember the names of them. But the blue and the green one you can stand next to, and then essentially just dwindle them down. Make sure you kill the big ad. It's kind of important, even in LFR. Other than that, collect your loots. I'll be doing part 2 and the part 3 Imperator probably soon. I already have the second part recorded. So I hope you guys enjoyed the boss guides. Probably not necessary, considering it's like a month into the LFR, but still, I wanted to do it, and so it seemed fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy your loots, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.